Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Coram and Shreve here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, where we saw another day of gains, Ken, and we got some interesting stocks to talk about as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look at Quanta Services. A lot of good action in individual stocks today, but PWR is the ticker there. Also, take a look at everyone's favorite chocolate company, Hershey, HSY. Gives a buy signal after reporting earnings. And finally, Funko, which reports earnings next week. Pop culture firm. A lot of new going on at this company, and pretty close to a buy point.
All right, we'll check in on those charts, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. So the NASDAQ today up about 1.1% by session's close, but even stronger was the S&P 500 up 1.2%, the Russell 2000 up 1.3%, and the Dow up 1% by the end of the day. So what do you think, Ken? Things are continuing to look better and better in this market, but that doesn't mean we can get complacent here and just go guns a-blazing now in terms of buying stocks and adding them to our portfolios.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're still kind of just walking cautiously here because, there's just, I mean, if this market uptrend is to be believed, and the fact that the NASDAQ closed above Friday's high, very, very positive. And again, saw some good action in individual stocks today. The market's doing a good job of shaking off bad news. We had GDP contraction, the first look at second quarter GDP this morning. The economy contracted at a rate of 0.9%. Expectations were for growth of 0.5%, but to see the market, shrug that off. And we also had some pretty crummy earnings reports from Meta Platforms, META, sell-off for Qualcomm. Yet we have a very bullish day, so you need to pay attention to that. We had volume on the Nasdaq and the NYSE, at least preliminary data showed volume higher than Wednesday. So this is all positive. I mean, we definitely have the green light to start looking for stocks to buy. But when you look at some of the S&P 500's top performing sectors today, real estate and utilities. So just underneath the surface, even though breadth is improving a little bit, just looking for those growth stocks to kick into gear, and we think they will. It just might take a little time, but we know that in the early stages of a new uptrend, new leadership can take several weeks to come out. So we're encouraged by how the market is acting, and we'll just keep looking at our screens and looking for buy opportunities. We added a couple new stocks to leaderboard today, so we're adding some new names conservatively. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think very interesting to point out where we were seeing the areas of strength in today's market, but also from a technical standpoint. Before we move off of the NASDAQ, you mentioned Friday's high, above that, check, above 12,000, check. But next up, we've got these highs here from early June, right around 12,300, a little higher than that. Might that be an area we could see at the very least some sort of pause, if not get turned away around there potentially?
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. 12,320 for the Nasdaq, that high that you're pointing out. I mean, what you have here is just like a nice little base here forming for the Nasdaq. Starting when it pulled back off that 12,320 high. So it's possible, could see a little resistance there, but we're just looking at the close above Friday's high is pretty noteworthy. Obviously, we have a lot of earnings reports after the close today. We've got Intel, we've got Apple is coming out at the bottom of the hour. So I mean, these will be market moving earnings reports, but we're very encouraged. I mean, I think the case for a market bottom here has strengthened quite a bit over the past couple of days, and the ability for the market to shrug off a lot of bad news. I was talking to Ed Carson just before the show, and we talked about all these earnings warnings. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Walmart just had a terrible bloated inventories, and it's been a mixed bag of earnings. I mentioned the sell-off in Meta and Qualcomm, but there were several bright spots today too. So we're encouraged by how the market is acting here.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take a quick look at the other major indexes. So here's the S&P 500. After closing above 4,000 in yesterday's session, we powered higher still. We've got those highs from early June still looming just under the 4,200 level, but still a little bit of room until we get to that point. And let's also take a look at the Dow closing above 32,000 in Wednesday's session, continuing higher today. So similar action here with those June highs still above us, but notable strength here 2 days in a row, whereas seeing that resiliency, as you're saying, not only in the face of earnings season, but also different reaction to the Fed reaction. So continuing on higher versus coming back down the day after we got that 75 basis point hike.
Yeah, I think the market right now is feeling pretty comfortable about the fact. I mean, the bottom line is listen, we could have negative GDP growth in the first and second quarter. Today's GDP reading was the first estimate. We've got a preliminary, and then we've got an advance and then preliminary, and then a final reading. So this was just the first estimate. We'll get two more estimates to gross domestic product. But again, the market is shaking off bad news, and I think the message from the market right now is that it's getting more optimistic about a soft landing for the economy. It realizes that the Fed may not have to be, as we talked about yesterday, may not have to be as aggressive with their rate hikes, and maybe it's going to be a shallow recession, and the market is seeing better things 9 months, 12 months out.
Yeah, an improving picture, no doubt. And you mentioned the strength in utilities and real estate. So let's just quickly pop in and check in on that. So XLU, the S&P 500 select sector index there for utilities, up 3.6% today. So a very strong move there. And then we also have XLRE, the real estate ETF, is up 3.7% today. So it's always great to take a look underneath the surface. What is showing that strength? Because as you mentioned, having that growth area be the leading groups is what we want to see. Maybe a little bit of caution seeing such strength from utilities and real estate. But as long as we're all still, swimming in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I was just
that's great.
this is like we really espouse swimming with the market tide, and I think we've gotten enough clues at this point that the market tide has started to flow positive. So that should be at least a less challenging environment to make money in stocks. So adding some stocks here and there, but again, starting small with a small position just to see how it works. And if we talk about getting positive feedback from stocks, and we actually got positive feedback from both stocks that we added to leaderboard today. So they closed nicely above our entries. So we believe the market tide is flowing positive, and but we're just kind of proceeding cautiously here, because the kind of the basket of stocks that we like to see in the early stages of a new uptrend, just not really seeing the prospects we want to see. But again, the important thing to remember is that new leadership can take several weeks to come out. So keep watching the screens, keep watching IBD Live, Stock Market Today video, all that good stuff.
Well said, Ken. Okay, let's move on to some individual stocks. Ticker PWR showing some power here today, a powerful breakout for Quanta Services on news of progress in the Senate on the climate, energy, and tax package. So we have a breakout with power up 8.5%, strong volume behind the move. This is a stock that presented a number of potential early entries, but we never saw the volume to accompany the price moves, but we are today.
Yeah, this was sitting on the leaders' watch list for quite some time. We were just kind of waiting for the consolidation to take shape, and we were looking at that recent high of 133.58, and then it just started to kind of move above that in very, very light volume. And but today, you actually had a bona fide breakout with some volume. Now you do have earnings next week, but Quanta Services is a infrastructure building services for utilities, electric utilities, gas, the energy market. So definitely a stock that should benefit at least to some extent for this spending package that's going through Capitol Hill right now. Another big reason why solar stocks have rallied too, because of this spending package. So, but PWR, good looking breakout here with some volume, and ideally we want to just kind of see this kind of hold gains and move sideways from here. Ideally, maybe even get some follow through tomorrow if we get a market rally. But we'll see. Looking good so far.
Yeah, and the close here, very strong, right at the top of the range. And so speaking of solar stocks, I can't help but be curious to see how the likes of Enphase and Solar Edge close. It looks like they did come back a little bit by the end of the day. The closing range here on Enphase, it looks like, let's see, exactly at 50%. So looking at a 5-minute chart, we saw a strong blast higher on that news this morning. It gave back and undercut that first couple of minutes, but then it looks like it regained its footing by the end of the day, and so a 50% closing range, not all too shabby. Had to sneak this in here.
Yeah, no, definitely looking good. I mean, Enphase started things off with a great earnings report. Next week, we're going to hear from Solar Edge, and I think first Solar is, let's see, they're coming out. I think they came out after the close, and it is looks like it's up. So lots of good news in the solar space.
So yeah, Solar Edge not quite as good of a close here. Closing range of 17%. So well up high. So Enphase looking a little stronger there. And First Solar, just to sneak this in there too, a gap up in today's session and up another 2% after hours, as you mentioned. And we'll get to some of the movers or potential movers, big companies reporting earnings like Intel before we close out. But let's move on to take a look at Hershey, because this had a strong close, a gain of 2.7% today, increasing volume on its earnings report. And Ken, Hershey got really nice and tight right around that 50-day moving average before moving solidly above that 220, 222 area.
Yeah, definitely. Over the past couple of weeks, it was just kind of holding right above the 50-day moving average ahead of its earnings report, and you had a nice acceleration in revenue here. And obviously not a sexy business here, but this was a chart that actually just gave an unequivocal buy signal. A lot of stocks, when the market opened today, they took off, and then when we were on on IBD Live, we saw all these big gains fade, and Hershey went below the 220 level. But as the market strengthened, all of these stocks that were strong and then weak, they all strengthened and got a lot of close near highs today. So that was a good sign. And Hershey, just a nice little breakout over a trend line and a move above the 220 level. So looked like an unequivocal buy signal to me today.
I guess the concern here, though, with stocks like Hershey that we've talked about in the past is, do you want to be putting money to work in defensive areas if we really want to make sure that we're keeping capital available for if and when we do start seeing growth stocks really start powering higher? But I mean, the relative strength on this thing is pretty undeniable, Ken, especially in 2022, really picking up steam here.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, just looking at the weekly chart here, I mean, you can see Hershey really trended when it broke out over the 140, 160 area. So it has shown an ability to outperform. Yes, it's defensive, and yeah, you get a little dividend here, and I think there's always room in the portfolio for for a name like this. Obviously, we want to go with the stocks that can double or triple or quadruple over a period of a year or two. And typically those are going to be your fast-growing growth stocks, and those are not quite back in favor yet. But we're seeing I guess green shoots that, and I'm even thinking of Microsoft that reported earnings yesterday. MSFT. I mean, here's a stock near its low, but look at the daily chart here, and it just looked like a nice little breakout over a area of resistance here. So tech stocks are still struggling, but we could see them start to outperform in the not too distant future. We'll see.
And last but not least, let's take a look at Funko, FNKO, pop culture company with a breakout of a long saucer with handle type pattern here, a gain of 8%, strong volume behind the move, not only today, but as it has built the right side of the base, which is really nice. We do have earnings coming up in a week. Ken, you think there might be enough time to build a profit cushion ahead of that report?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, this is what they kind of bill themselves as a pop culture company. They're known for their figurines, and they've got definitely a younger demographic. And it was interesting earlier this week. There was a news release. They came out. They signed a video game partnership with a company called 1010. So there's something new going on in Funko. So could be an alternate revenue stream for them going forward. But it's got a good track record of growth, and yeah, a lot of growth stocks reporting earnings next week. So we got Funko earnings. We've got a lot of leaderboard growth stocks set to report. So we'll see what the numbers look like at Funko. Could make sense. I'm not sure how liquid this is in the options market, but it is in the type of setup where could make sense for an earnings option trade. Just need to check the liquidity.
And something else to quickly point out here is that even though we did see a breakout today and close a little over the 26 level, 27 or around there does seem like a pretty significant area going back to about a year ago, where it started forming the left side high of the base.
You're getting pretty good at looking at these charts, Ali. I like what you're saying. But yeah, this is. I mean, if we go back to the daily chart, it is a. It was a breakout today over. We call that a little handle area, a little shakeout when it broke out over that 25.93 high. So since we're in a healthy or a market where market health is improving, we would expect some of these breakouts today to show some follow through tomorrow. So I mean that is typically when you see, if you're in the early stages of an uptrend where that can be believed, you get follow through after the breakout. So you get a good heavy volume move like Funko did today, and then maybe get some follow through tomorrow that'll push it through that left side high. So it'll be important to watch all the breakouts that we saw today. Important to see if we get some follow through tomorrow. If we don't, it's not the end of the world. Again, we're going to wait and see what Apple says at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. But hopefully, we'll get a good response from earnings there, and continue higher tomorrow. We'll see.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Always good to look at those different time frames. And since we're talking about Funko earnings coming up next week, we just do have to quickly point out that the last couple of earnings reactions, while strong on that initial day following the report, the day after that, the stock has had a tendency to give back those gains. Will it change its personality this time around? We will have to see, but just another thing to note about the chart, Ken.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, sell the news. You always have to be a little wary of stocks that are rallying into earnings, because you get this, sell the news, situation where, they rallied in anticipation of a good number, and then you get the good number, and then you get the sell off. So that might have happened with Funko the past two times they reported. But we'll see what the results look like next week. But yeah, next week's going to be very, very busy again in terms of earnings. So.
It is. All right. Well, before we go, let's quickly check in on Intel INTC, down 11%. That's an early reaction to the report out after the bell. As you said, we're still waiting on Apple. It's up about 1% right now, but we still don't quite have the numbers just yet. So everyone should make sure to keep tabs on investors.com. We will have all the news you need to know and the perspective on that earnings report for you shortly at investors.com, both on the site and mobile. So make sure you're keeping tabs there. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And we will see you back here tomorrow. But first, we will see you in the morning on IBD Live. We hope you join us, where we're going to be breaking down all the earnings reactions and other stock moves of interest and answering your questions live for the first 90 minutes of trade. Check out investors.com/IBD Live for the details on that, especially because we have Matt Caruso rejoining the show of Caruso Insights. Always great to get his take on where things are going. And since we are starting to see those green shoots, as you mentioned, a little shift in the tone in the market here, some signs of improvement. It'll be great to see what's on his radar now. as we maybe are starting to turn the corner here, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, he's Matt's a great growth investor, and it will be very interesting to see which stocks he's watching tomorrow. So it'll be a good one for sure.
It really will. Okay, we'll see you there, everyone. Investors.com/IBD Live, and we'll also see you right here at the close tomorrow.